Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is James Roberts. Welcome to the October 30th edition of Effective, Efficient, Affordable, and above all, accountable to you, the show that sometimes finds wisdom in the pages of our newspapers. This from the Hartford Courant. No one is watching the store in Winstead. And from the Republican American, Winstead in need of a complete leadership change. No one's minding the store, need a complete leadership change. Could not have put it better myself. This is the last show before the election, ladies and gentlemen. Next Tuesday, November 5th, you go to the polls to vote for selectmen, a board of education, a new town clerk, and to visit a charter revision question. I would like to take this opportunity to explore with you whom I shall be voting for and how I shall be voting on the charter revision question. First of all, let me just review with you how I think about candidates, how I score candidates, if you will. The first question I ask myself is, what have they done for us lately? What have they done the last 2 years? Do I like what they have done? Did they get the job done? And secondly, how did they get the job done? What were their methods like? Faced with candidates who have brought the town to the brink of bankruptcy, it is unlikely that I will view that record positively. Faced with candidates who have achieved their ends by shutting down public comment, who have achieved their goals by shutting down input from members of the Board of Selectmen, who have achieved their goals by packing boards and commissions, I'm unlikely to be very sympathetic towards those candidates. The second question I ask myself is, what are they promising? Does it sound reasonable? Does it address the issues that we face? And can they deliver? Faced with candidates who brought the town to the brink of bankruptcy, I'm going to hope they're promising something more than just the same. I'm going to hope that they're going to promise more than we're going to finish the job and put the town into bankruptcy. Faced with candidates who cannot successfully construct an outhouse on a playing field, I'm going to wonder what they are good for. But the big one, ladies and gentlemen, the big question by which I measure candidates is a very personal one. Do I believe them? Do I trust them? Will they place our interests over their interests? If you genuinely believe that Candy's Bridge, or that Candy's more broader political aspirations in Hartford, are somehow more important than our schools, then perhaps you'll vote for Candy Perez. If you believe that George Clausen's shed for his snowblower, or the Full Employment Act for George Clausen's friends and families on the boards and commissions of our town are more important than our roads, then maybe you'll vote for George Clausen. And if you truly believe, ladies and gentlemen, that Mike Renzullo's next property deal is truly what Mike Renzullo should be thinking about and devoting his attentions to, then maybe you'll vote for Mike Renzullo. But this is the question, ladies and gentlemen. Do you trust them? Do you believe them? Will they do the right thing? Will they put their interests ahead of your interests? Let's start with the Board of Education. This is the easy place to start. What has the board brought us these last 2 years? What is the record that folks will be running on or against? The Board of Education has brought us a study in nothingness, a study in blah, a study, quite frankly, in failure. Despite ever-increasing amounts of money being spent, our academic results are stagnant. We are achieving little in the way of improvement. The only bright spot is the Gilbert School, ladies and gentlemen. The only bright spot academically is the Gilbert School, and this board seems hell-bent on cutting the Gilbert School loose, on taking your children away from Gilbert. This board has continued to ignore financial considerations. This board doesn't much care how much money it spends or what it spends its money on, and they're certainly not going to tell you about it. This board would like to move your children to Torrington. This board would like to end the partnership with Gilbert. This board has lost the faith of the community. The community no longer knows what the mission of this board really is, nor does the community have much faith in the expertise of this board to execute upon that mission. And the sad thing, ladies and gentlemen, the sad thing about the Board of Education is that per the board, this is all somebody else's fault. All of these problems are due to the fact that we have the wrong kind of kids, or the wrong kind of parents, or the wrong kind of buildings. It's Gilbert that's to blame. It's James Roberts who's to blame. It's the Republicans who are to blame. It's the community who's to blame. It's the voters who are to blame. Leadership starts at the top, ladies and gentlemen. Leadership starts at the top. You have a clear choice for the Board of Education. The incumbents, Royer, Dutton, Shaughnessy, or three new faces, Starzyk, Cox, and Robago. The incumbents, Royer, Dutton, and Shaughnessy, support the majority and are supported by the majority. They believe that mission number one for the Board of Education is to protect the very large political rear end of Candy Perez's political aspirations. When Candy and her fellow Democrats decided in 2012 not to fund the MBR, the Board of Education said, "That's okay. We'll keep quiet. We won't tell Hartford." When Candy and her fellow Democrats decided to do the same in 2013, the Board of Education said, "That's okay. We'll keep quiet. We won't tell Hartford." When the Board of Education's own finance director approached them in August of this year and said, "We don't have enough money to pay teachers. We cannot keep the schools open," the Board of Education said, "That's okay. We'll keep quiet. We won't tell Hartford." We had a vote, ladies and gentlemen. A majority of the Board of Education voted not to tell Hartford that we did not have enough money to keep the schools open. Royer, Dutton, Shaughnessy voted not to tell Hartford. The second thing this board believes, the majority on this board, the incumbents believe, is that their job is to put as much distance between the community and the schools as possible. They think the schools are somehow special, different, separate from the community. They don't believe that the community's financial situation is something they need to take account of. They don't believe that the community's hopes for the education system or desires for the educational system is something they need to be particularly focused on. They certainly don't feel the need to explain themselves to you, and two of the three didn't even bother to show up at the education debate. Now, if you're tired, ladies and gentlemen, if you are tired of hearing why we cannot close a school, and would prefer to hear that we have closed a school and it worked out just fine, then you need not to vote for the incumbents, not to vote for Royer, Dutton, and Shaughnessy. You need to bring new faces onto this board and begin to change the way this board operates. If you're tired of hearing, ladies and gentlemen, that your kids' test scores aren't improving because you have the wrong kind, because we have the wrong kind of kids, or the wrong kind of parents, or the wrong kind of schools, you need to elect new faces to this board. If you're tired of hearing that we can't work with Gilbert, that we're going to send the kids to Torrington, you need to elect new faces to this board. If you're tired of this board, ladies and gentlemen, you have to change this board. I will be voting for Starzyk, Cox, and Robago, three Republican candidates for the Board of Education. These three candidates understand that the job of the Board of Education is to run the schools, to manage the schools in the best interests of the community whose schools they are, in the best interests of the community which pays the bills. They need to understand, and they do understand, that it is not their job and not their prerogative to hold hostage the children of this community in favor of their own personal ideological agenda. Which brings us to the Board of Selectmen. What has the Board of Selectmen done for us lately? What have they achieved these last 2 years? Well, the first comment I would make is that oversight seems not to have been at the top of their list. Oversight has been entirely absent. If you believe a majority of the selectmen, their biggest accomplishment was the fact that they held the doors of Town Hall open and shook Henry Centrella by the hand as he ran out of the building, apparently, allegedly, with all of our money, with bank bills floating in the air behind him. There's been no oversight by this Board of Selectmen. This Board of Selectmen has underfunded the schools, underfunded the MBR each and every year of its existence. Here it is, ladies and gentlemen, black and white. Got it today. This is the Board of Education's response to the investigation currently ongoing at the state. The Board of Education has officially stated that the Board of Selectmen underfunded them each and every year, and that the Board of Education kept quiet. The Board of Education withheld that information from Hartford. Candy Perez and her fellow Democrats swept into power on the message, "Your schools are safe with us." And yet Candy Perez, per her own colleagues on the Board of Education, the Democrat-led Board of Education, underfunded the MBR each and every day of each and every year of this administration. Our schools are poised to close, ladies and gentlemen, for lack of funding. Hell of a record. We have unpaid bills. We have no fund balance. We are on the brink of bankruptcy. Our core town functions are in chaos. You cannot navigate our roads. And you shouldn't navigate our bridges. Our downtown economy, our downtown grand list is in collapse. Those of you who use water and sewer, those of you who pay water and sewer rates, have just received the highest rate hikes in history. And all you can expect, ladies and gentlemen, is more rate hikes to come. And finally, the one area where this board has been successful is the packing, the stacking of every board and commission in town with George Claussen's friends and family. That's what the board has done for us lately, ladies and gentlemen. And what was the contribution of the Democrats to these astonishing achievements? Well, remember, ladies and gentlemen, the Democrats had a supermajority control of this board. They had 5 votes out of the 7. Everything that this board has done has been at the behest of the Democrats. The Democrats' record, the incumbents' record, has been one of epic failure. They would have you believe that our financial problems, the problems that face us today, the fact that we're on the brink of bankruptcy, is somehow the mysterious result of something deeply secret that had happened all of a sudden last week, perhaps last month, perhaps even yesterday. That it's Henry's fault, although Henry hasn't been seen for a year. That it's water and sewer's fault, although water and sewer has nothing to do with it. Or that it's the Republicans' fault, although we haven't elected a Republican administration in 6 years. No, ladies and gentlemen, the problems that we face are the entirely predictable, entirely foreseeable, directly related results of the colossal errors of judgment of the Democrat majority on the Board of Selectmen. They told the Board of Education to spend an extra $1.3 million without raising a nickel of tax money to pay for it. They continued to present budget after budget that didn't raise money to pay for the bonds, although their own town manager, Wayne Dover, told them they had to. And finally, and most egregiously, they crafted a budget this time around, and last time around, frankly, that didn't pay the bills. They knew we had millions and millions of unpaid bills. They knew we had no cash in the kitty. And they told you that somehow we could manage the town on that basis, that somehow the budget would work on that basis. When Candy Perez told you that she could run the town with millions and millions of unpaid bills and no fund balance and no cash, she was lying to you. When Mike Rinzullo told you that he could run the town with millions and millions of unpaid bills and no fund balance and no cash, he was lying to you. When George Claussen, who had the script upside down, mumbled something about the other two being right, he was lying to you too. We cannot run the town with millions and millions of unpaid bills, no fund balance, and no cash. If we have learned anything from the last 6 months, it is that. And yet the record of the Democrat incumbents is precisely that. So what are they promising us? We said test number 2 was, what are they going to promise us? Well, astonishingly, they are promising us more of the same. Having brought us to the brink of bankruptcy, the basic message to you, the taxpayers, you, the voters, is we're going to finish the job. The GANs, their much heralded GANs, these notes that they're asking the banks to lend us, that simply changes the date of the bankruptcy from December to April. A motion was put on the floor at the Board of Selectmen to raise a supplemental tax and pay the bills. They voted no. Rinzullo, Claussen, Perez voted no. They voted not to pay the bills. They voted to continue the deadbeat way that doesn't work. And what about the new Democrats? Virginia Schultz-Schuette has a record too. Police record, court record, hospital record. We have serious problems that we face, ladies and gentlemen. We have to dig our town out of a hole. This is no time to be having a debate as to whether we should have as a selectman someone who, in their own words, may or may not be a child assassin. These are her words, ladies and gentlemen, Virginia Schultz-Schuette's words, quoted in the Republican American newspaper, when they asked her about her actions that led to the lockdown of the Pearson School, about her threats to shoot people. We don't need a debate right now about child assassins, ladies and gentlemen. Just like we don't need people who cannot build an outhouse in a playing field. Loretta Tremblay, again, I don't know anything about Loretta Tremblay, but the company she keeps on the Democratic slate would seem to indicate that Loretta Tremblay is not the strongest candidate in the pile. So who am I voting for, ladies and gentlemen? Lisa Smith on the Republican ticket. Lisa Smith has been right on the issues consistently over time. She fought long and hard for a risk-based audit. She fought long and hard for cross-training in the finance office. She fought long and hard to limit the spread of Section 8 housing. She fought long and hard to stop the town from giving its assets away at pennies on the dollar. She fought for economic growth. She fought to stop the ever-present rise of benefit costs. Lisa Smith has been right consistently on the issues. That's her record. And she's right on the issues going forward. We need to pay our bills. We need a fund balance. We need to restore the town to its core mission. Keeping the schools open, fixing the roads, policing the streets. Candice Bouchard, I will be voting for Candice Bouchard, also on the Republic line. Candice has focused her campaign on controls and audits and budgets. Kind of boring issues, but these are fundamental, ladies and gentlemen, to fixing the problems that we face. Candice Bouchard has worked in the finance departments of some of the largest multinationals in the land. She knows that controls, audits, and budgets lie at the heart of successful government. Had the Democrat supermajority been able to read and understand the audits, they would have known that there was no cash, that there was no fund balance, that Henry was moving around money left, right, and center to compensate for the fact that they refused to budget for the bonds. They would know these things, ladies and gentlemen, because they're described fulsomely in the audits. Budgets are important too. If the Democrats understood how to budget, they wouldn't have had you pass. Candy would not have crafted a budget that ignored the unpaid bills, that ignored the bonds. Candy would not have passed a budget whose central premise was to deprive the schools of enough money to stay open through December. Because that was the budget that Candy Perez crafted and had you pass. Candice Bouchard would not allow that to happen. And Candice Bouchard understands that controls are important too. Now here Selectman Perez takes great pride in the controls that she has implemented. 23 people, all of them left-handed, required to sign a check. But it doesn't matter how many people, Selectman Perez, how many left-handed signatories you have to sign a check if there is no cash in the bank to cover it. Rob Vaught. I'll be voting for Rob Vaught. Not a flashy guy. He believes in getting the job done rather than quoting slogans. He has restored this campaign to a focus on fixing the roads, policing the streets, keeping the schools open. More controversially, David LaPointe. Now, David comes with budget, with baggage. I do not believe everything that David believes in. But nor, frankly, do I think that that's particularly relevant to his work as a selectman. Stepping back, we all know what the solution to our problems is going to be. It's going to be more taxes and less services. Even Candy agrees with that. Although the way she gets there is a little odd. She thinks that the way to save money is to stop paying bills. She thinks the way to cut costs is to simply close the schools for a couple of months in the middle of the year. And she thinks the best way to raise taxes is to abolish water and sewer, jack their rates over and over, and then just steal the money. But fundamentally, Candy gets it. There's going to be more taxes, less services. That means there's going to be a supplemental tax, one way or another, coming down the pike. And there is nothing that should so terrify the citizens of Winsted as the idea that the next Board of Selectmen is going to have their hands on a supplemental tax, is going to have their hands on oodles and oodles and oodles of spare cash. And this is where David LaPointe is important. There are three things you have to know about David LaPointe. What you see is what you get. There is no pretense, there is no hypocrisy, there is no hidden agenda. There's no George Claussen's shed. Second thing you need to know about David LaPointe, he backs down to no man. He is afraid of no man. And the third thing you need to know about David LaPointe is he is unalterably wedded to spending discipline. When those extra dollars come washing in, when that supplemental tax comes washing in, you need David LaPointe on this board telling this board, don't spend the money. You need David LaPointe on this board. And finally, Bowles. Bowles understands, as a businessman understands, that we need growth. At the end of the day, when we fixed our problems, when we've got our government spending in line, we need to grow. And Bowles understands that growth is not going to come from legislative fiat. It's not going to come from the Board of Selectmen per se. It's certainly not going to come from George Clausen's Planning and Zoning Commission or the POCD Commission or the newly ballsed up ZBA. It's going to come from the Selectmen making sure that all impediments to future financial growth, economic growth, are removed. It's going to come from being a growth-friendly town. That's what Bowles brings to the equation. And for Town Clerk, Tara Sunday. It's time for a change in the Town Clerk's office. Which brings us to the Charter Revision question. The Democrats want to abolish the Water and Sewer Commission. Their stated reason for doing that is because it doesn't make money. But once again, if the Democrats knew how to read a set of accounts, they would know that on a cash flow basis, water and sewer does make money. The second reason for abolishing water and sewer is it doesn't pay on its debts. Once again, if the Democrats could actually read a financial prospectus, they would understand that water and sewer doesn't have those particular debts. It doesn't need to pay on those debts. Those are debts of the town. What the Democrats really want is they want to abolish water and sewer so that they can take over water and sewer's rate-fixing powers. The Democrats want to raise water and sewer rates over and over and over again so they can siphon that money off back into the town. When the Democrats want to pave Newfield Road up in Winchester Center, when they want credit for that, they want the water and sewer users to pay for it. When the Democrats choose to put more administrative costs into the school system, they want the water and sewer users to pay for it. When the Democrats choose to up benefit payments to the staff from Town Hall, they want the water and sewer users to pay for it. This is a simple power grab, an unprecedented power grab, and you have to vote no. Which brings us full circle to that final question of trust. Some of you have complained that I have made this campaign personal. And for me it is personal, ladies and gentlemen. There is nothing more personal than giving your money to somebody else. There is nothing more personal than telling your government how to spend your money. And there is nothing more personal than when your government essentially wastes it. The question you have to ask of your candidates is, do you trust them? Do you believe them? Do you think they can and will put your interests first? Do they have judgment? Can they execute? Could they build an outhouse on a playing field? My opinion is that the Democrats have failed in every respect. They have brought the town to the brink of bankruptcy. They did so knowingly. They knew exactly what was going on. They tried to cover it up. They lied to you repeatedly. They created a budget that doesn't work. They told you they could run the town with millions of unpaid bills and no cash and no fund balance. And he's telling you now that they're going to continue to do that. They have no intentions to pay the bills. They have no intent on changing anything about the plan. The plan that essentially said, we're going to shortchange the schools and we're going to take that money and we're going to use that to pay the town. And we don't care if the schools close. Not our problem. Let the Board of Education deal with that. The Democrats fail the accountability test. The Democrats fail the personal character test. For me, the folks that I will be voting for on the Board of Education, Cox, Starzyk, Rubego. For the Board of Selectmen, Smith, Bouchard, Vogt, Lapointe, and Bowles. And for the Town Clerk, Sunday. These are the candidates who I believe will put the town's interests first. These are the candidates who I believe have judgment. These are the candidates who I believe can execute. These are the candidates who I choose to believe. And most fundamentally, these are the candidates whom I trust. And on the charter revision question, abolishing water and sewer, allowing the Democrat-led Board of Selectmen to simply raise water and sewer rates and steal that money for the town, I'm voting emphatically no. No, no, no. Once again, for the Board of Education, Starzyk, Cox, Rebecca. For the Board of Selectmen, Smith, Bouchard, Vogt, Lapointe, Bowles. For the Town Clerk, Sunday. These are the candidates that I choose to place my trust in. These are the candidates whom I believe will do the right thing for our community, who will fix the financial mess, who will fix the out-of-control, rampant costs of government, and who will begin the slow process of rebuilding our town, rebuilding our economic base, growing our grand list. These are the candidates for Winsted. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. You have the opportunity next Tuesday, November 5th, to make a difference for our town. I very much hope that you will go out and vote on Tuesday, November 5th. And whether you agree with me and support the candidates that I choose to support, or quite frankly, whether you don't, I very much hope that you will go out and vote. And I very much hope that you will hold whomever you vote for accountable over the next 2 years. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, and we will see you after the elections. Good night.